Welcome everybody to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be having a look at BTC. This is going to be a lower time frame video. We do have a higher time frame video up above, so check that out if you haven't already. Let's get into the charts and see what's going on. Okay, before we jump into the lower degree counts, we're going to be discussing a couple of things here. Now, what we were initially looking for here was the possibility that we could have this as 1 2 1 2, and effectively what we were saying here is that we were looking for this as another 1 and 2. Now, this hasn't invalidated because we haven't crossed this 24,800, but the potential here is starting to become less likely because of how deep we've come here and the way we're currently reacting to the upside. We don't have a very good reaction here so far, and if we were looking for something like this to look to play out, we need to protect this low, which is sitting at this 25,156 level. And what we'd want to start to see here is 5-wave structure developing to the upside, breaking back above some of these highs to give us more confidence that something like this was in place. So we have come down here towards this 0.854, which is a very deep retracement for wave 2, which is making it very unlikely that this is what's actually playing out currently. But if we do continue to hold this low, then we could potentially start to look for this idea of continuation up. But the internals are actually suggesting that we potentially have one more low to come, which will make it more likely we're going to break this zone. Now, the other way we were discussing this was that potentially we are looking at this move as either a completed A wave in this way here, where we have our 5th wave up into this point, and this whole move is a corrective structure, or alternatively, saying that what we have here is the potential for this to be a bigger A, B, and a C. Now, within this idea here of this corrective move here down as a B wave, what we could see here is that this move could actually become either a W, an X, and a Y. Now, the difference between these two counts is that if we're looking for a WXY, we're looking for 3 waves down, 3 waves to the upside, and another 3 waves to the downside. Now, with the WXY, it's more common that the X wave doesn't actually breach the origin of the W wave, though it can happen. What we'd be looking out for here is effectively just to have a 3-wave move to the downside and then start to see price looking to push back up. Now, we do have some targets lower down here, this 25,063 to this 24,402 level. I will be watching out that, if we do form this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got a little bit more downside to come here and a 5th wave. This could actually align with pushing us down into the zone, which would be back into this target box area here of this 25,600 to this 24,255. Now, within this area, what we do still have lower down here is the potential to actually come back down and sweep these naked points of control here towards this 24,977 and this 24,798 level. So this would be looking to push us down here. Obviously, we do have some highs and lows in this area that I'm keeping an eye on. We have bounced off of this one over here at this 25,248. Now we do have this low here, which we could potentially look to swing fail if we do look to push down here one more time. As well as that, we do have this zone over here towards this 24,250 that could align quite nicely with a retest of some of these highs over here into this zone. So going to be keeping an eye on this if we do see price looking to push down into those levels. Now, the alternate way of looking at this structure is saying that what we have here is 3, 3, and we're looking for a 5-wave move. So this would make this a flat correction. Now, the most common target areas that we look for a flat correction would be actually here towards this 25,360 to this 23,646 level. So this would also align with that idea of pushing down a little bit deeper here, looking to sweep this zone. Now, if we do look to see something like this play out, what we'd be looking for from the high here would be a 5-wave structure. And then from there, what we'd be looking for confirmation would be price to move back up and sweep this B wave high again. That's the only time that we get a confirmation of a flat is once we actually take this B wave high. So we would need to see price actually complete good structure down here and an additional 4th and a 5th. And then we'd need to see price move back up here and look to take this high. As long as we fail to actually take this high, we would always have to be careful that this could become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We get 3 waves up and then we still see continuation down. So it's going to be very important here that if we form a 5-wave move down here, that we actually move back up and take this high. Otherwise, this would align with the more bearish option here where we could be looking for continuation to the downside. So we need to just be very careful here that if we form 5 waves down and we only form 3 waves up, this could actually indicate that we're going to see a much deeper push, in which case things would start to look more likely that if we are looking at this within that bullish count, that we are rather within the idea of this being a bigger B wave. And what we could then see is the potential to see price push down lower here towards some of these zones. So not if we're looking for a B wave potential, Typically speaking, what we look for is between this 50% and the 786, which would be here at this 21,903 to this 17,956 level. So that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on here. If we do look to continue down here, we could be looking to move down into these zones. Now, another interesting thing here is that if this is a flat correction, the most common target area for a flat is between this 382 and this 50%, which is here at this 23,774 to this 21,903 level. So going to be watching these zones if we do look to push down lower here. This does also align with this purple trend line that I have, which is drawn off of these lows over here. Now we only have 2 touch points on this trend line, but I've just projected this out as a possible zone that we could look to actually have an interaction on later on. So going to keep an eye on this if we do continue to push down here. Okay, so now we're going to come in more locally here and discuss the structure. Now there is a couple of ways of still looking at this move. Now if we are looking at that idea of this just being a corrective structure, what we were saying before was that if this move does actually complete into this high over here, what we could have is that this could be an A wave, we have this as a B wave, and we were looking for a C wave to the downside. Now we have pushed down deep enough here that potentially this could already look to be completed, but the problem is the internal structure isn't great. Now the only way that we could argue that we've completed where we currently are here within this idea is if we were to look at this as a C wave, what we would be saying is that this move here is 1, 2, this would be 3, we'd be looking for this as a 4th and a 5th wave down. Now the way that we'd be looking at this as a 4th wave is you would have to argue that internally here we had this as A, B, C, D, E, and then we have this as our 5th. Now this would mean we have a truncation in the 5th wave, which is not very common, so it's not my primary expectation here, but I am just looking out for it. If from this point here we start to develop 5-wave structure to the upside, where this is actually a series of 1s and 2s, and then we start to break up in a bigger way here, then potentially we could be looking for this to play out. But we'd have to see price move back above this 29,155 level to invalidate this idea of this as a 5th wave. Now, if we're looking at this idea where we have this as 1, 2 here, effectively this wave 4 is becoming quite large now. So if we look at the time relationship, this has actually gone 5 times the length of this wave 2 that we have up here. So it's starting to look less likely that this is part of that 4th wave. If we do, however, just take this 4th wave into this point here, we can see that this actually has equality with the wave 2 that we had. So going to be keeping an eye on this idea here, that if we do start to push to the upside here, potentially this could align with this move actually completing as a truncation, and we could start to move up impulsively from this point. But given the current structure here, you know, we'd have to start seeing this reacting more to the upside in obviously a more impulsive manner. And we need to start pushing at least above this 26,942 to start getting an indication that this is actually taking place. Until we actually break through this rejection zone here of this 27,337, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this idea that we could still have an additional push to the downside. Now that target would be here at this 24,718 to this 24,010 level. So still keeping an eye on this idea here that we could just have this as an ABC, where we could see price look to move down one more time and then look to react to the upside. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this plays out, because there's a couple of ways of looking at this move to the downside. Now we could also argue that from over here what we're looking for is just A, this is B, and we're looking for C. Now the problem with this is that we've actually already come down towards this 1618. Now if we're looking at this as a potential A wave here and we look at this as a B, then what we'd be looking for is a completed 5-wave move down. Now we don't really have good structure here, like I said, unless we have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then this is our low over here, and we'd be expecting to protect this area, which would be towards that 25,633. If, however, we start to push back down deeper here, we need to just also be aware that we could still be within this bigger 5-wave structure here, where we were looking for a flat, and what we'd be saying is that our B wave high is into this zone here. Now with this idea, what we'd be saying is that this whole move down is 1, we have a 3-wave move up for our wave 2, and what we're saying is that this move to the downside is our wave 3. Now it is possible that we could argue that this wave 3 is into this low over here, but it is also possible internally here we could still be extending. We're going to go over that idea in a second. Now if this is a wave 4 though, this would allow for a bit of a bigger time period for this wave 4 to develop. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. What we'd be looking for here in this case though is we'd be looking for something complex to actually develop here, because this was quite a simple move to the upside. So we'd need to keep an eye on this. Now if we throw this fib time relationship on here, now what we can see is that the 1-to-1 is over here towards this 26th of August. Now if this is going to play out as a more corrective move, what we could see is this could actually just become quite choppy here, and we could see something like this looking to play out, where we still need to actually push up one more time, looking for this 27,588 to this 26,281 level. Now if we are looking at this idea of this being a fourth wave, we cannot cross this wave 1 area here of this 28,585. Otherwise, this invalidates this idea. So going to need to keep an eye on this. If we do continue to hold this rejection zone here, this 27,588 level, it becomes more likely we're going to still see one more push to the downside here before that continuation. Okay, now we also need to talk about the possibility that there could be extension within these waves. Now, what I'm saying about this, now what I mean by extension is that within here we still have a series of 1s and 2s that have nestled up the top end of this. Now within this idea, there's two ways that I'm currently looking at this, of saying that what we could have here is that this is 1, 2, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've actually had an extension in the yellow fifth wave. It is also, however, possible here that this could be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then this all actually becomes our third wave into this zone here. So within this idea, what we'd be saying is the extension is in the wave 5. Now this is more rare, but it is still possible. And what we could then say here is that if we are looking at this idea of this being 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the same idea here where we could say, okay, maybe we've truncated into here, we need to still be careful of this 27,337, because within this idea, what we'd be saying is that this is wave 1, 2, this all becomes wave 3, we have the potential for wave 4, and then we'd still be looking for wave 5 to the downside. Now the target area for this as a wave 5 is towards this 27,794 to this 24,204 level. So there is potential here. We could argue that we got something like a triangle in here, but we need to start breaking down directly. The white target box would still be a viable target if this fourth wave is actually completed into here and we're looking to break down. The problem is the time relationship. Once again, it is quite large in relation to this wave 2. So I'm just being mindful that the time relationships here could be giving us a bit of an indication as to where we are within this count. Now, if we are looking at the potential here that, like I said, that this is rather a wave 3, what we could have is something along these lines. Now, within this idea here, what we'd be saying is that internally here, we have this as 1, 2, this becomes 3, this becomes 4 into this area here, fifth wave to the downside. Now, if this is the case, what we could say is, once again, we have that possibility of a truncation here. Now, once again, with this idea, until we actually break above this 27,337, we need to be careful of that continuation to the downside. And what we'd be saying within this idea is that if this count is in play, what we could have is that we still have this 1, 2, and we still have this 1, 2 over here to take place as a fourth and a fifth. So this would align with actually seeing even deeper extension here. So it's going to be very important until we actually break these fourth wave areas. We need to be careful that we don't just see price continue to push down in these additional fourths and fifths and look to continue to push us down deeper. Now, the idea here that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, like on the bigger picture here, is that if we are looking at this as extending within this structure, we could be looking for either this 2618 level or this 3618 level. Depending on how much extension we have that actually looks to take place here, we could continue to look to push down to some of these lower zones. Like I said, we have hit this 1618, but if we do have these extensions here and we start to see this idea where this is actually a third wave here, then we get an additional fourth and a fifth, then we get another fourth and a fifth, then we get one more fourth and a fifth. This could align with rather this idea of this wave 3 heading towards this 22,879 level. So it's going to be important to see how we actually respond from this zone. Like I said, we do have potential here that we could argue that this is just a corrective structure down and we've completed into this low already, but we don't have enough evidence of that. So at the moment, I'm just being optimistically cautious here that, you know, until we break this fourth wave area here, we need to be very careful of continuation to the downside. Now, having a look at this move over here, still looking out for the potential that this could be some kind of a triangle here, where actually what we have is that this is our A wave, this is our B wave, and we're still looking for a more complex C wave. So that would be this yellow C wave over here. Now the most common target area here for a C wave would be this 26,554 to this 26,814. Now it is also possible we could have something like this, where our C wave is here, this is our D wave, and what we actually have here is an E wave already completed. Within this idea, what we'd be saying is that we need to break down directly. Invalidation of this would come by pushing back above this 26,299, and that would be saying that, you know, this can't be a triangle anymore in this way. If we are looking at this as a triangle, what we would have to be on the lookout for, like I said, is that possibly the C wave could still be in play here, where the C wave is getting complex, where we have this is the 3-wave move here as a zigzag. Now what we have is this is A, this is B, we're looking for C, and then we're still going to see another push to the upside in this Y wave. Now if this is the case, what we'd be looking for off of our current area would be 26,641. Now this would align both with coming into these highs over here, as well as pushing us back up into the C wave box. As well as that, in this zone we do also have a 26,453 daily naked point of control that I will be keeping an eye on if we do look to push to the upside. So it's going to be interesting here to see whether we actually continue to push up here, because at the moment we don't have good structure to the downside saying that this impulse is continuing, but we don't have good structure to the upside either saying that we could be looking for a breakout. So it's going to be quite interesting. Like I said, we need to see the confirmation from the waves here, because if we do form something like this as a W, X, and a Y, what we'd then be looking for here, if this is going to be a triangle, would be 3 waves down, 3 waves back up, and then that continuation down. Now, the thing is within this idea is that if this is developing as a bigger triangle like this, it becomes more likely that this is this bigger 4th wave over here. And what we'd be saying is that this wave 3 has actually completed into this point here. And the only way that that would be able to be counted like that is you'd have to say this is 1, 2, this would become our 3rd wave, 4th wave, and then we have this extension in the 5th, which is not as common, but like I said, it is technically possible. So if we do develop this as a bigger triangle here, it becomes more likely that actually this is the yellow 4th wave here, and they would expect one more low here. If, however, we start to break down from where we currently are, what we could actually see is some further extension. So we're going to discuss that idea of some further extension here. As we said previously, you know, there is potential here that what we could have is that there's a triangle in here, and then this is a 5th wave truncation. Now, until we actually take this high of this 26,620, what we could still see here is that this could look to actually push down in a bigger 5-wave structure still, where this move is actually extending again here, where what we would be saying is that this move could potentially be 1, this could potentially be 2, and then we're looking for 3, 4, and 5. So this would then mean that what we are looking for as a target would be this 24,740 level, and this would be saying that internally here, what we're going to start to see is rejection to the downside, where we form a bigger 5-wave structure, looking for this zone of this 24,740. If we do see a push down to this level, what I would be then anticipating would be an additional 4th and a 5th, which could look to push us down towards this 24,600 to this 24,380. Now, once again, the danger with something like this actually developing is that there is a couple of ways of counting this, because if we are saying that within the structure here, what we have is that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, this could actually be our 5th wave extending. If we've got this as this 1, 2, 3, this could be a 4th and a 5th. We still look to push up for another 4th and a 5th, and then we could even get another 4th and a 5th here. So it's going to be very important watching these 4th wave areas, and until we actually start to see some decent structure to the upside that starts to counter this bearish count, the most likely direction at the moment is still looking like it is down. The only thing that we have going from a bullish standpoint from where we currently are here is the count of this either being a 1 and a 2, in which case we need to see price break back above these highs. But really the more likely thing that could be playing out here, in my opinion, is rather that we are still looking for a bit more downside here, looking to test out some of these lower levels, but we're going to have to keep an eye on this zone to see exactly how we react. Now, we also discussed this idea, which we will be keeping an eye on moving forward here, that if we do just form this as a 3-wave move to the downside, and instead of forming a nice strong 5-wave move to the upside here, we just get 3 waves back up here, Going to still be keeping an eye on this 33,548 to this 31k region, where if we do get a 3-wave move up here, we could still see continuation to the downside, making this just a bigger flat correction once again here, looking for this as that bigger B wave. So going to keep an eye on this. If we do see something like this play out, this would be quite a sneaky move here, because what we'd do is potentially, if we are looking at this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're still looking for a 5th wave, would actually come back down here, sweep these lows, then we'd see price actually come back to the upside here, sweep these highs, and then we'd actually come back down once again and sweep these lows. So it's going to be interesting moving forward. We need to keep an eye on this. If we do continue to push down in 5-wave structure, it's going to be important how we react after that point. Coming in here and looking at the daily CPR lines, what we can see is that we have had some CPR lines here printed quite sideways. This one has printed slightly higher, which is giving us an initial bullish bias here, but we have also rejected off of the central lines. Now we have come down towards this S1 line here, so I'll be interested to see if this continues to hold. If this does, that could potentially mean we see a retest of these central lines and then either a rejection, or what we see is price move back above these and look to test some of these higher levels. So higher levels for today would be this 26,332, 26,484, 26,662, and this level here of this 26,809 as possible upside targets for today. If, however, we do see price continue to reject down, we lose this S1 line. Other targets to the downside for today would be this 25,825, 25,675, and this level here of this 25,496. Now, moving over here onto the weekly, what we can see is we have new lines printed here. So these lines are actually currently above us. So if we do look to move to the upside, we could potentially look to find resistance in this zone. Now this would be between this 26,596, this 27,000, and this 27,459 levels. So if we do look to move back up into these, we could see a rejection. Now if we do see price do something like this could align with the idea of this developing as a triangle or just a bigger WXY here, and then we could still look for that continuation down. So going to be watching these zones if we do look to push to the upside. If we look to reject to the downside this month, other potential targets that we have here for the downside is this 24,351, 22,470, and all the way down here we have this area of this 19,832 as possible targets. Now this target over here of this S1 would align with the idea of getting an additional 5th wave here, so going to be keeping an eye on that. If we do look to move down that towards those levels, like I said, there's some interesting zones on the left hand side here that we need to keep an eye on for a reaction. Now if we do, however, see price looking to push back above these central lines, what we could then see this week is the potential to actually test this 28,884, 31,515, and this 33,416 as potential upside targets for this week. Now we're going to come over here and actually have a look at the monthly and have a look at what we've got going on here. So on the monthly, what we've done is we've actually moved down towards our S3 line. Now, if we do look to continue pushing down, we can look to obviously break these levels. These are just potential pivot zones within the market. Once again, to the upside here at this high of this 27,032, we do have the potential to actually find resistance on this S2 line. Higher up resistance levels could be this 28,141, and then back into these central lines, this 30,359 to this 29,605 level. If we do see price looking to push back to the upside, I'm going to be watching these zones to see how we react. As well as that, if we do manage to flip these central lines here, targets to the upside for this month would be this 31,127, 32,900, and this 34k as possible targets to the upside. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video. Leave us some feedback down below, and also in the description you will find a link to the Discord. Come check it out, it's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We will see you in the next one. Take care.